I'm Ben Hamlen. I grew up in Edina, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. Favorite thing to eat for breakfast? I would say if I'm in a hurry, just some toast with some peanut butter on it. But if I have more time, I really like to make breakfast wraps. That's been something I've been kind of messing with over the last couple of years. So it changes depending on probably a lot of things, but right now it's eggs so like I will make some scrambled eggs, some cooked potatoes, and then I like to put a little dollop of like sour cream, and then a little bit of some kind of sauce that's kind of spicy, like sriracha sauce. Then some cheese. I'm just giving you a whole recipe. It's crazy. Damn. Some onions, and then very important, in a panini press. I had not had one of these for my whole life until recently. I just got like this little small one. But yeah, it fits it perfectly and super delicious. Love it. Yes, I went to the University of Minnesota for my undergrad in mechanical engineering. I think this might be kind of a cop-out answer, but I think there are multiple. The one that was kind of most impactful towards my life was MnRI 2011, which is Intro to Mechanical Engineering, where we had this big robot project that we had to make a robot that did something interesting and or useful totally autonomously for 20 to 60 seconds. And I'd never made a robot before, and that was a really cool experience for me. And then the one that changed how I look at the world the most was MnRI 5281, which is feedback control something. I don't remember the full name, but that's the kind of topic. And that made me kind of see the world as interacting systems, specifically dynamic systems, kind of as opposed to some other way of looking at it. It like really made me we were talking earlier about how when you kind of see the math behind stuff, you feel like Neo in the Matrix. That's like a quote that was used in that class, because it turns out that many different systems are governed by actually the exact same equation. So like the spread of virus through your body and like the propagation of chemicals and like a chemical reaction, it seems totally unrelated. And yet it's like modeled the exact same way, like the same variables, everything. So that really messed my head up when I was in that class. I wanted to do a master's in robotics specifically, as opposed to some other kind of engineering or just comp sci, because I think that the experience of seeing a robot that can kind of tell what's going on around it and can interact with its environment was very profound to me. And that happened in that class MnRI 2011. That was the experience that made me choose robotics specifically. Was I was working on my robot, and it had some thing where it would make an attempt at doing some task, and it would either make it or it would fail. And there was some simple way to make it tell if it made it or failed, and I made it so it was happy or sad, right? In like a very basic way. It would like lower its head down if it was sad, or like move back and forth if it was happy, right? And this is like a very simple addition from a technical perspective, but something about like human psychology or something, I don't know what it is, but it became a lot more than just some motors and sensors. And actually to the point where people that were watching it would start to root for it, right? Like people would like invest their own emotions into it at the robot show, and it like made it or missed, right? They'd be like, oh, it's gonna try again, right? And we'd go back and they'd be like cheering for it. But it's just like some motors, you know what I mean? And I thought this was deeply fascinating. You could argue that you could get the same thing from studying computer science going into like artificial intelligence, but I like also that you can code things and then physical things move in the real world. That also blew my mind. So I think that robotics encompasses these two kind of sub areas of machines that like think or kind of are starting, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of, we're on this like incredible journey of discovery about like what thinking really is and like what is intelligence. And then also making things move in the real world from typing letters on a screen is crazy to me. So there's two off the top of my head that I can think of. One is Junaid Sattar, who I took Intro to C++ with, and I really enjoyed that class and kept bothering him about computer science and specifically computer vision and machine learning related questions throughout the rest of my coursework. And so that was my sophomore year. And for the rest of undergrad, I would just kind of bother him every once in a while. He's been incredibly helpful just as like a consultant, essentially. You'd be like, hey, I have a question about this. What are your thoughts? And you can either meet in person or get on Zoom or something. And then the other prof who has had the most profound effect on my life is Tim Kovalevsky. And he was the prof who taught Intro to Mechanical Engineering, MECHE 2011. Part of why I worked really hard on my project for that class, this like big robot project that you have to do, was that he gave a presentation and lecture of the research he did in his lab. And it was like robots that crawl through your arteries and like crazy medical robotics and like really awesome stuff. And so I went up after class and I was like, hey, how do I apply to work in your lab? Like, it looks really cool. And he said, well, your robot is kind of like your application. So if you have a cool robot, then we'll talk. So I pulled out all the stops I possibly could on the robot and then ended up working in his lab. And the effect that lab work has had on me, I feel like it like can't be understated, for my life at least, because it really took me from having only done a little bit of stuff with like an Arduino to a lot more advanced robotics and coding stuff, and just in general like being around kind of both fields, right? So I had to do a lot of stuff in MATLAB prior to doing it in my coursework later on in the mechanical engineering track. It made me spread across different fields, right? So for one robotics project, you need to code things. That's comp sci knowledge. You need to hook up different components onto a breadboard, right? So you have like a sensor, and then you have your little microcontroller, like an Arduino, for example. You need to plug them. You need to connect them, and it's not like a wall outlet. Like you need to like cut wires, and like you need to look at diagrams. And sometimes you need to put a resistor in a certain place to make this thing work or this work. So it's like electrical engineering, right? Then there's like the stuff you're actually moving around, which is you have to deal with a lot of mechanical engineering stuff there. So the work in Tim Kovalevsky's lab, specifically having to do a lot of multidisciplinary stuff, was incredibly impactful. I think I'm just wrapping up the work now. Because in addition to all that other stuff, I was able to write a couple of journal papers, which was really good experience in terms of figuring out the kind of peer review process as well as technical writing. So yeah, I would say, to summarize, Junaid Sattar and Tim Kovalevsky are two profs who I've had an ongoing connection with, and it's been really, really beneficial. It would be algebra, because I'm awful at algebra and it makes my life really hard sometimes. So definitely algebra. So this might not be the answer you're looking for, but it's the truth, which is I actually don't think it is the right time. My answer kind of has two parts. It's like it isn't right now, but when I made the decision, it was. And that was at the very end of my undergrad. I decided to go to the U of M before anything about COVID. It was like a couple months. It was like right before, right? And back then it was definitely the right decision, because I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering, and we only, that's a very broad major. But by my sophomore year, I had found that I really love robotics and I love coding. And so I felt like I didn't get to do enough of that. And conveniently, there was a new robotics master's program at this school that I'd already went to, and a lot of the profs already knew me in that program. And so I figured this was a very natural step to keep working on robots without having to deal with a setback, I guess, of having to move to a new place, because it's always valuable to live in a new place and to do different things. But you do kind of have to restart a little bit with your network and everything, right? So when I made the decision to come here, it was definitely the right thing, because it presented an easy on ramp into learning a lot more about robotics. I think that the biggest challenge of online learning is the absence of face-to-face communication, because so much of communication is nonverbal. And I'm not sure if it's just because I'm around a lot of comp sci students and we're nerdy and like antisocial, but no one has their webcams on in Zoom lectures. I think that adversely affects everyone involved. You know what I mean? Because the prof is used to seeing people's reactions for lecturing. And when people don't have their webcams on, then the prof just sees gray boxes and they're like, well, I don't know if these gray boxes understand, you know, what I'm talking about. So there's that, as well as not having as set of a routine where you need to leave, like where your learning and like your leisure spaces are separate. I think this is something that I did not anticipate being as much of a problem as it is. Like you leave your apartment and you walk to class and you're like in the mindset, you're like, I'm going to go to class and be productive. I'll go to the library, right? Now it's like, okay, I'll sit here and do stuff, but like I can just hit like Control T and then like press Y and YouTube's right there. And then it's like at the same time, it's like no one will know, right? It is hard to exist in all the mindsets at once. It makes you less productive, I think. If nothing else, it makes people work with computers more, so we can kind of get them a little more integrated. Well, let's put it this way: it's not like we're gonna go back to in-person learning and get nothing out of it. So it's like we can use the lessons learned about how to communicate over computers more effectively, how to send files more effectively, right? How to deal with computer problems more effectively. I think that these are things that we can take out of it and kind of reincorporate into in-person learning. Hopefully more teachers will know to move the mouse like off the YouTube, like off of some part of the UI on YouTube so it goes away. God, I hope that's I'm only half joking too. That's the thing. I actually hate that. I have been doing okay, I think, because of having access to talk to my friends through Discord. So I'm glad that I live with a roommate right now. So also just that as well, just having like another person to live with and talk to, make sure I'm not totally losing my grasp on reality from inside this box. But so it sounds kind of cliche, but to be honest, one thing that makes me feel better is kind of keeping it in perspective, I guess, that like nothing really crazy has happened. So, you know, oh, I can't go to class and I'm upset, blah, blah, blah. But like, I'm still chilling in my apartment. Like I haven't like lost my place of living. You know what I mean? It's really a shame, I think, that it sounds cliche to say that, to be honest, which is getting away from the question a little bit, I guess. But I think that's something that could help everyone if we could get over being like, oh yeah, you should be grateful. You know what I mean? It's like, it really is helpful to make you smile more. You know what I mean? I'm looking forward to being able to work on music with people again, but in the kind of sense of having, like, when I have time, having people be able to just come through and hang out and kind of work on stuff. Also just having friends over in gatherings in general. Like I remember, I mean, it wasn't, we didn't have a good time in the end, but for the season finale of Game of Thrones, that was like a whole event every week. For the series finale, for the last season. It was like a whole tradition, and now we can't do that. So I think just in general, being able to hang out with people, and also not waking up and being angry right away at seeing people's snap stories of them out at bars. I'm excited to like not be angry about people being at bars. Okay, so I always love J. Cole. That's my first and foremost. Where's my Dreamville hoodie? Is it? There it is. Yeah. Greenville. Love J. Cole. Excellent. So aside from J. Cole, I love I've been listening to a lot more R&B. So I'm listening to like Black, some Miguel. I'm listening to a lot of SZA, Sir. Also love Jaden Smith. And then one local artist. His name's Greg Mike, Gregmike. No spaces. Excellent. It's kind of like R&B. Really, really love it. Also, two more local artists. Two very good friends of mine who I've worked with, who have been playing a lot of music. One of them is named Dio, D-I-O, and the other one is named Khalil Poe. And there's a new project from Poe that just came out called Project Poe that I worked on that I've been, maybe it's a little selfish, but I've been listening to it a lot because I like how it sounds. So yeah. So to summarize, J. Cole, SZA, Black, just kind of like R&B, and then Greg Mike, Dio, and Khalil Poe. I think that the Minnesota Robotics Institute is supporting me primarily in two ways. The first one is financially, where they were a lot more generous than any of the other programs that I applied to. And second is kind of on a personal level, I felt a lot more cared about during the application process, as well as once I'd been admitted. Like as an example, for different schools, you'd send in your application, they'd be like, hey, here's this email contact for all your questions. Like this is your primary liaison, right? And then I would send them an email and I actually never got a reply from at least one of them over months. And so whereas you compare that with the Minnesota Robotics Institute, where I got a personal Zoom call with Shar and Nikos to just talk about just kind of everything, all to talk about. It was like a half hour, an hour, something like that as well. It didn't feel rushed. Like it felt like a genuine conversation. It didn't feel like a platitude, right? Because I know sometimes big institutions be, oh, we do this because we care, and you can tell they really don't care. It felt like a genuine conversation about concerns I had, questions, and returned excitement about things that I was excited about. So I really am passionate about the communication of science and kind of these topics. And I expressed this and they were like, oh, that's excellent. We actually, we can use that. And here's this program, you can do this, this, and this. So that made me even more excited that not only did I like get the time of day, right? It was that when I proposed ideas, they were taken and kind of run with as well. Well, so I don't think that life inherently has meaning. I think the meaning is something that humans made up to more carefully direct our efforts, right? But I think that we can all agree that learning about things is good, and knowledge is good, and happiness is good. And I think that it is unfortunate that sometimes it seems like those are kind of diametrically opposed, right? It's like the more you learn about stuff, the more cynical you get sometimes. But I think that the meaning or the kind of goal towards which we should strive is to learn as much as we can about why carefully arranged piles of dirt can think, and like what is going on around us in the universe, and to try to make those very carefully and very specially arranged piles of dirt as happy as they can while they're still alive.